So let's start with a big question, one that people have been asking for thousands of years. What truly makes a person worthy? Is it their family name, the money they have, or is it something deeper? It's a question we still wrestle with, but today we're going to look at an ancient story that gives a surprisingly modern answer. So let's just boil it down to this. Is greatness something you're born with, or is it something you have to earn? I mean, really think about that for a second. Does your background define your potential, or is it the choices you make every single day? This is the exact debate we're about to jump into. Okay, so picture this. Our story kicks off with two good friends, a couple of really bright young scholars named Vāseṭṭha and Bhāradvāja. They're out for a walk one day, and they get into this huge argument, one that cuts right to the heart of how they see the world and what makes a person valuable. And their whole disagreement really comes down to these two ideas. On one side, you've got Bhāradvāja. He's convinced that what makes you noble is your jati, your birth. For him, it's all about having a pure blood lineage, going back generations without a single flaw. But Vāseṭṭha, his friend, he's on the complete opposite side. He argues it's all about karma, your actions. He believes what you do is what makes you noble. They go back and forth, but they're just stuck. Neither one can convince the other, so they hit a wall. And they decide to do something pretty smart. They agree to take their question to a teacher famous for his incredible insight, the Buddha, and they promise to accept whatever he says as the final word. So when they finally get their audience and pose this huge question, the Buddha doesn't just give a simple yes or no. Of course not. Instead, he does something way more interesting. He tells them to just look around, to look at the natural world, using simple observation to pick apart this huge, deeply held belief. He points out that, hey, if you look at grasses and trees or insects and fish, you can see obvious, clear differences between them. The Pali phrase for this is lingam jatimayam, which basically means a mark of birth. An ant is clearly not a butterfly. A snake is obviously not a bird. Their species is literally written all over their bodies. You can tell what they are just by looking at them. And then, after laying all that groundwork, he completely flips the script. He delivers this powerful line: among humans, there are no such distinct marks of birth. His point is just shattering. Unlike the animal kingdom, we humans don't have these built-in physical markers, not in our hair, our eyes, or our skin, that separate us into fundamentally different types of beings. We are, at our core, one species. Well, that just pulls the rug out from under Bharadvāja's entire argument, right? If our biology doesn't split us into noble and common, if the family we're born into isn't the thing that defines us, then what is? And that question just hangs there, setting the stage for a whole new way of looking at everything. And this is where the Buddha offers his revolutionary answer. He completely redefines what identity even is. He explains that who we are isn't determined by our ancestors, but by our function, by what we actually do. The roles we have in society, they're just labels we put on our actions. The logic here is actually incredibly simple and direct. Someone who takes care of cattle, we call them a farmer. A person who makes things for a living, well, they're an artisan. Someone who trades goods is a merchant, and someone who governs a kingdom is a king. See? These aren't some permanent labels you inherit. They're just descriptions of what a person does. They're karma. Your actions define your role. Simple as that. Okay, so after establishing that our jobs are defined by what we do, the Buddha takes it a huge step further. He zeroes in on the highest spiritual ideal of that time, the Brahmin, or the noble one, and he says that true nobility, the kind that really matters, has absolutely nothing to do with your family tree. It's measured entirely by your inner character. So what does this truly noble person look like? Well, first, the Buddha says it's about freedom. Real freedom. The kind where you've cut the inner chains of craving and fear. Someone who has moved beyond attachment and is totally liberated. That's a noble one. He also says, true nobility is found in a completely different kind of strength. It's not about physical force. It's the incredible power of patience, the ability to endure criticism, hostility, and hardship without getting angry. Now that is real power. And get this, in a world that can be full of conflict, the noble one is an island of peace. They stay calm and harmless even when they're surrounded by aggression and violence. They don't get pulled into the drama. Even the way we speak becomes a measure of our character. A truly noble person uses words that are gentle, that are helpful, and above all, that are true. Words that don't tear people down but build them up. And finally, it all comes down to absolute, unshakable integrity. A noble person is so fundamentally honest that they would never, ever take anything that wasn't freely offered to them, no matter how small or how tempting. So after painting this incredibly rich and detailed picture of what true nobility looks like, a nobility of character, not of blood, the Buddha is ready to bring it all home. He delivers his final, crystal-clear verdict that directly answers their original question. And here it is, the single line that sums up the entire teaching, a statement that was absolutely revolutionary for its time. Not by birth is one noble, by action one is noble. It's not about who your parents were. It's all about who you choose to be, moment by moment. So let's be really clear about what this idea of karma really is. It is not fate. It's not some destiny that's written in the stars. It's simply the law of cause and effect, and it's driven by your intentions. Every choice you make, every word you say, every action you take, it's a seed that you plant, shaping who you are and creating your future. You are the architect of your own character. And with that powerful, clear explanation, the debate was finally over. Vāseṭṭha and Bhāradvāja both had their answer. They were filled with joy, and they accepted this new understanding completely. The conflict between them just dissolved. So this ancient story brings us right back here, to our own lives. If it's true that it's not by birth, but by our actions that we become who we are, well, that means every single day is a fresh page. Your actions are the ink. So the only question left is, what kind of story are you going to write?